Alright, okay. Today we'll be discussing the Pascal triangle from the Leetcode problem. Okay, so what about the Pascal triangle is? Pascal triangle is nothing but pattern, particular pattern, where you can see the each number of rows. So for the number of rows it contains one element, and for the number of twos it contains two elements, for the number of three it contains three elements, and all the elements of the in starting of element and on the ending element all is initialized as 0. Why 0? Because this is the particular pattern, and where the middle element here for the third row, the middle element is the sum of this one and this one. And for the how does 3 comes? So sum is 1 plus 2 is 3. Here 3 is 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay, so for what will be the this element? So this element will be 1 plus 3, that is 4, right? So this element will be 3 plus 3, that is 6, right? This is a particular pattern, and we have to print it for the particular number of input, right? So let's take two we have to need two for loop, right? So one for loop is taking for the number of rows, and one for loop is taking the number of columns. And so you have to think just like a matrix, like, so first of all you have to take two vector, that is vector, and that is initialized as, let's say its name is v, and your the size is initialized by the rows, now the number of rows, num rows, right? Yeah, okay. And then you have to take the for loop. So why the for loop? Here the I is taking as 0 and I is denoting the number of rows, right? So I will be going to the number of rows and a plus plus, and for here, so for here you have to initialize that the v of I, that should be resize. Why resize? Because each of the element, each of the row element will contain the number of rows, right? So number of rows plus 1. Why I'm taking the number of rows plus 1? Because here you can see the zeroth, this is the zeroth row, and it contains the one element. Here is the first row and it contains two elements, so it is already the I plus 1, right? And then I will be going for the initialization of the each starting and ending element, that will be equal to 1, right? So I am initializing that v of I of 0, right? This is a simple matrix form, and that will be equal to also the v of I and I, this ending element, that will be initialized as 1, and also I am taking a for loop. So while this is for loop is taking the inner element, right? So for this element, right? And for this element I am taking this row, the column number particularly, I would say this is starting from 1, right? So at the 0 level there is nothing to calculate, and for the one element, one row, same row, so j will be up to the I, right? And your I will your j will be increment, and then your simply your v of I of j will be, right? So this will be simply the previous element, right? So if you take this position, so your previous element will be this and this, so this is already I v I of j, and you have to take the sum of v of I minus 1 position. So you have to take the v of I minus 1 element with the j minus 1, right? And you have to also take the sum of v of I minus 1 to j, right? I think it's all done. And then you have to do the okay, the answer is accepted, and let's submit it. So our Pascal triangle is painted, right? Okay, thank you for listening.